Hannah Johnson, April 23rd. The question is, will President Obama's foreign policy decisions imperil Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential aspirations? The United States is like one big factory. Within the factory of the United States, there are little machines, each with a specific job to do. Examples of these pieces of machinery can be anything from our economy to our education system. And when we look to the United States, our factory doesn't just affect us, but literally everyone in the world. And that's because the United States has always used our foreign policy to get in the middle of conflicts and talks within every country in the rest of the world. And right now, as we look to President Barack Obama's foreign policy, it's apparent that he's trying to decrease the United States' influence, at least militarily. Specifically, a March 23rd article from the Washington Post indicates that President Barack Obama is trying to make his foreign policy more cooperative and moderate. However, this is seen as unpopular in some people's eyes because we have the best military in the world, so why not use it? And some people even claim that this is going to negatively affect Hillary Clinton, the possible runner for the Democratic Party in 2016. So although she might be riding on the president's coattails, it does not mean that this is negatively going to affect her. So when asked the question today, will President Barack Obama's foreign policy decisions imperil Hillary Clinton's race in 2016? The answer is no. But before we can jump to conclusions, we have to look to three main points of analysis. First, we'll take a look at how Barack Obama's foreign policy decisions has affected the United States factory and everywhere else abroad. Next, we'll move on to see how Hillary Clinton's position at the State Department has led to her being a more viable candidate. And then finally, we'll move on to see how foreign policy will be the savior of Hillary Clinton's 2016 run, mainly because her opponents don't know much about foreign policy. But first, let's take a big look at how President Barack Obama has created his foreign policy. As a February 10th article from 2013 and CNN mentions, President Barack Obama is seen as the major decider when it comes to foreign policy, and the Secretary of State is just the figurehead. This article was published just a few days after John Kerry initially took office as the Secretary of State, showing that throughout the entirety of President Barack Obama's administration, and also through John Kerry's stint at the State Department, he is going to be the major person making the decisions. And right now, his decisions are focusing on skimming down the United States' use of military. Right now, the United States is trying to use more economic and regional solutions to major conflicts or problems that are existing within the rest of the world. And a good example of this comes from Eastern Europe and Russia. Right now, the United States is focusing on sanctioning Russia instead of necessarily taking military action against them. This shows that President Barack Obama, even when times get rough and he fears a new Cold War, he's going to focus on not utilizing our military. Now, President Barack Obama has seen a big shift in his foreign policy from years past. However, this big shift isn't going to hurt Hillary Clinton at all. And a major reason for this is because Hillary Clinton was an effective diplomat, which means that her foreign policy is going to be exponentially better than what a lot of the pundits would say. First, when we look to Hillary Clinton, we can understand that an Al Jazeera article from February of last year mentions that she was actually, even though she was the figurehead of what President Barack Obama wanted to happen, she added personal diplomacy to what she was trying to get passed. A good example given by the Al Jazeera article was that the foreign Indian minister's daughter was getting married while Hillary Clinton was in India. And instead of just sending her a gift, Hillary Clinton specifically went to the ceremony and participated, showing that she wasn't afraid to take part in other cultures, which means that she's overall going to be viewed more positively in places where she does this, whether it's India or Singapore or Mexico. India specifically is very important to Hillary Clinton because in the next few years, India is going to become a higher power, as a BBC News article from March of 2014 mentions. Now, India right now is seeing slowed economic growth, but it's expected to uptake in years in the future, which is going to benefit not only Hillary Clinton because she's already going to have a strong diplomatic force there, but also the United States, especially if Hillary Clinton is elected. But Hillary Clinton isn't just revered by the people that she's worked with. She's also revered by the people that she's also revered by the people within the State Department. Specifically, a Huffington Post article from April 7th of this year indicates that the United States ambassador to Spain, someone that Hillary Clinton had to work very closely with, especially during the Eurozone crisis, mentioned that if Hillary Clinton were to run in 2016, she would be a sure win. He also cited in the article that the reason for this would be her foreign policy and diplomacy standpoint that she's had in years past. Considering the fact that Hillary Clinton saw a successful stint at the State Department during President Obama's first term, we now take a look at how this foreign policy standpoint is going to be the savior of her in 2016. Now, obviously, Hillary Clinton already has a strong basis in foreign policy, understanding what's happening in the world, what dynamics are, and knowing some of the diplomats, which is all going to benefit her. But we can also look to her opponents, people like Rand Paul, who, as a CNN article from April 1st of this year indicates, has had his foreign policy views declared as dangerous, not only by his 2016 or his primary opponents like Chris Christie, but also by people who are supposed to be on the same boat as him, like Tea Party senators. This just goes to show that Rand Paul, his foreign policy isn't popular. So, especially compared to a dangerous or out there foreign policy proposed by him, a sensible and moderate foreign policy proposed by Hillary Clinton is going to be much better. But it's not just Rand Paul who Hillary Clinton is going to beat out when it comes to foreign policy. We can also look to the other Republican candidates who have zero knowledge of foreign policy. Specifically, the same article from Politico on April 1st mentions that Rand Paul, although he might have crazy ideas, he's the most experienced out of the field of people running for the Republican nomination. It cites people like Chris Christie and Jeb Bush, who have been widely resourced as domestic politicians, not as diplomatic politicians. This just goes to show that when the foreign policy debates happen in 2016, whether it's against Rand Paul or Chris Christie, she's going to have a major up on those people because she's going to be either seen as more sensible or more knowledgeable on the subject. So when we look back to the question today, will President Obama's foreign policy decisions imperil Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign? The answer is no. The first reason is because President Obama's foreign policy, although it might be getting more moderate, is still not doing any harm to the United States morale. Next, we can take a look at how specifically Hillary's popularity and her position at the State Department is going to benefit her. And then finally, compared to her candidates, Hillary Clinton has the most knowledge of how the United States factory is going to affect everywhere else.